Hello, friends. Danielle here. Welcome back to the Thyroid 101 Masterclass. If you're ready to finally heal your thyroid symptoms, get rid of all the aches and pains and other ways you've been suffering and get your life back, this is the right place to be. I'm Danielle Métis, scientist, health coach, and mom with Hashimoto's, and I have helped literally thousands of people, myself included, learn what it is they need to do to heal and get their lives back. So this video is the third in our series, and we're going to talk about what we need to do next. What do we actually do? But first, I just want to recap a little bit what we've been doing so far. So this is the third in our series of videos in this Thyroid 101 Masterclass, where I'm really trying to give you all of the tools that you need to understand what's going on in your body and what you need to do to get your life back. So far, the response has been amazing. Hundreds of you have watched both of those videos, have downloaded the handouts, and have already really commented, and I think started to really benefit from this information. And I'm so excited to hear that, because honestly, friends, it has become my mission in life to get this information out to as many people as possible, because I know from experience and from seeing it in my clients literally hundreds of times, we do not have to suffer like this. So my friends, if you haven't been able to watch these videos, maybe you didn't get through all of one or two, or didn't download the handouts, I suggest you go back, because these really do build on each other. We're going to be here when you're done. So go check those out and then come join us again here. So let's talk about what we have, where this is coming from. First, my friends, as always, I want to welcome all of you, because we're in this together. You are not alone. I hope that first video showed you that there are literally, in my own Facebook group, thousands of people who understand what you're going through, and you are welcome here. So let's talk about what we've done so far. First, we talked about, why do I still feel awful if my labs are normal? And we discovered, one, why do we feel awful? Because of how thyroid issues cause symptoms. And then we talked about lab testing, because the second part of that question is, often our labs are not normal, right? We feel awful because we have all these symptoms, because actually our body's not getting a thyroid hormone. So to recap, again, thyroid, as you know, endocrine gland here in your throat. Your thyroid makes two hormones, mostly T4, which is the inactive form that your body uses to store sort of this potential, and then T3, which is the active form. But that T3 is made from T4, and it must be converted to T3 to be used in the body, and it's converted in various places in the body, obviously not just in the thyroid. So the first reason why you may not feel good is that you're not producing enough of this hormone, right? We talked about the reasons why you might not be producing hormone. If you don't have enough T4, you might have enough T3. If you don't have enough T4, you're not converting to T3. Or if you have too much reverse T3 and you can't use that, but overall, it means you don't have enough hormone. So that's one of the big reasons why you may feel awful. And because if you don't have hormone, all these functions and more can't work. Sluggish thyroid, sluggish everything else. So how do you know if you have a thyroid disorder? We talked about that lab tests are not everything. We need to talk about symptoms too. So you need to track your symptoms, and these are the lab tests we need to do to get a comprehensive picture of thyroid function. And then again, don't just go by those lab ranges, but understand the optimal reference ranges, because this is really where people feel healthy. So that's the recap of the first two, a real whirlwind tour. Let's jump into today's. So great. Okay, we talked about we have symptoms, we're going to get our labs. All right, so now what do we do with this information? What do we do if we're diagnosed with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism? What are the treatment options? How can we actually get better? That's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to talk about basically, you go to the doctor, you get the labs, now what? What might your doctor propose? What are some of your options? So ideally, the goal of hypothyroid treatment from the medical perspective is to ensure adequate levels of the active thyroid hormone T3. That's really, so far we've talked about where a lot of the symptoms come from. We don't have enough T3. It's not all the healing, but it's an important component. We'll get into the rest later. So we need T3. That's really important to remember. So let's talk about our thyroid hormones, or our thyroid medications. The thyroid medications that doctors prescribe for hypothyroidism are replacements for the hormone our thyroids can't make. So they're not really drugs in the sense of they're trying to do something else to our body. They're just replacing what we can't make. Not everybody will need them. Many of us will, at least for a part of our journey. So let's talk about the most common ones. First, we're going to talk with T4. Makes sense, right? We have two of these thyroid hormones. Let's talk about the drugs that replace them. The most common drug, literally one of the most common drugs in the world. It has been the number one most prescribed drug a number of years in a row is levothyroxine sodium. Most of us just know as levothyroxine. It is, in fact, the generic name, a synthetic form of thyroxine, which is the drug, which is the actual hormone. It's known by the brands Synthroid, Levoxyl, Unithroid, Levothyroid, and Tyrosine. Those are the brand names available in the United States. Here are two of them. It's also available in generic from several manufacturers. We're going to talk about that because it's generics, not always the same thing. So again, most people who have hypothyroidism though feel best when they take both, right? Remember, this needs to become this, and many of us have trouble converting between the two. So we actually need to take both. We need to take both T4 and T3. Remember, that little iodine makes all the difference in the world. So what are forms then of T3 medications? So the synthetic form of T3 is liothyronine sodium, because if you remember in that last slide, T3 is triiodothyronine, triiodothyronine, which is a 3-iodine thyronine molecule. It's known by the brand name Cytomel. Some of you may have heard of this. It's also available as a generic drug. And this is just an example of the generic from Maine. Now, you've heard the brand names, you've heard the generics. We need to talk about those, and we will get into that in a moment. Oops. So there's another option, natural desiccated thyroid, or NDT. Many people ask me about this. NDT is literally that. It is a naturally dried thyroid, and it's made from the dried thyroid of a pig. It contains both T4 and T3 in the proportions that they are found in a pig's thyroid. There are several brands: Armor, Nature Thyroid, WP Thyroid, and NP Thyroid are the 4 brands that we know of in the United States. There is no generic. So this is another possibility. So people often ask, which thyroid medication is best? It depends. It really depends on you. But we'll go into some of the options. Because thyroid hormones are so critical and so potent, especially with T3, medications must be carefully chosen and monitored and adjusted to fit each individual. So different people may benefit from different types or combinations of medication. So like I said, the answer is depends. But there are some things that we can use to make those determinations or understand why one might work better than another. So things to consider. 1, this is so important. Brand name drugs by law must be consistent from batch to batch, whereas generics can vary by as much as plus or minus 5%. That might not seem like a lot, but if you're taking 100 micrograms of say Tyrosine and or any sort of levothyroxine, plus or minus 5% can make you go from 95 to 105. These hormones are really potent. That change could be the difference between being sick and hypo to being hyper. And not only could it be from like one manufacturer versus another, it could be literally 1 month next. You get a different batch and it might be, your dose could literally be going like this. And people wonder why they feel awful, because the actual drugs are changing from month to month or prescription to prescription. That's just generics versus brand names. That doesn't mean brand names are better, because most medications, including brand names, include inactive fillers. The actual active ingredient in a thyroid pill is like a grain of sand. So they put all the stuff around it so you can swallow it. But those fillers can reduce absorption. So even though it says 100 micrograms, you might not be absorbing that. And they may even include inflammatory ingredients like gluten, dairy, or corn. So those of us with autoimmunity, and I'm not going to get into that in this class, but we should not be eating certain foods because they trigger autoimmunity, like gluten. Synthroid, for example, has gluten. Tyrosine is a liquid form of T3 that comes in a capsule or like a little liquid ampule, or an ampule full of liquid. It's considered the cleanest and most easily absorbed thyroid medication. So a lot of people like that. A lot of insurance companies don't. However, there are ways to get it less expensive if you have to pay for it yourself. Generic liothyronine, T3, and this is just something I found on my own from Maine Pharma, does not contain any inflammatory fillers. I discovered this the hard way by trying a whole bunch of other brands like Sigma and so on. That made me sick. So what is a good option for this if you're going to take, if you need T4 and T3, like most of us do? The question is, why not just, so why don't we just take NDT, right? We said NDT has T4 and T3. That is a good option for many, many people. There's a number of studies have shown that people who take NDT tend to feel better than those on just levothyroxine alone, which isn't that surprising because NDT at least has some T3, big difference. However, and this is why it might not work for some people, again, works for many, NDT contains T3 to T4 in a fixed ratio, the amount that a pig has to produce. And many people find they need slightly different ratios. So, for example, I couldn't take NDT for two reasons, but one is that I needed more T3, but when I took enough NDT to get the right amount of T3, I was taking too much T4. So when my T4 was right, my T3 was too low. When my T3 was light, my T4 was too low, not too high. So I couldn't take NDT for that reason. Another reason why I can't take NDT is that manufacturing standards for NDT changed in the past few years. They added lactose, which is dairy derived and potentially inflammatory ingredient. And it is in all NDT formulations. That it was actually the US Pharmacopoeia, which is the organization that regulates pharmaceutical drugs. Lactose monohydrate is a binding agent in all NDT. For those of us who are super sensitive, some people, even though we shouldn't have dairy, can still take this. I am one of the lucky hypersensitive ones, cannot take this. So that's a reason why you might not be able to take NDT. So what are the preferred thyroid medication options? So this is according to Dr. Weston Childs, a phenomenal doctor of osteopathic medicine. He worked with thyroid patients for a very long time, and these are his preferred options. And I really like his work. One, he said tyrosine. So that's the cleanest T4. And then he adds T3. And for me, this is what I take. I'm not saying it's the best one. It's just working with my doctor. I found this combo to be the best. For me, tyrosine plus levothyroxine from Main Pharma. And that's the combination I do. Another option is NDT, taking to give you the right amount of T4 plus a little T3, and then you add a little more T3 on top of that to give you adequate amounts of T4 and T3. So it's important to note if you're taking T3, which most of us should, it's used very rapidly. Remember, this is the active form. T4, like sort of, your body, it stays in your bloodstream over 2 weeks. T3 is like 2 hours. So often people find they need to take it, or it reaches a peak in 2 hours. They need to take it multiple times a day, 2 or 3 times. I take it actually 3 times a day. So we think, okay, well, we're fine now, right? Great, we have the medication. However, so that's great. We want the proper medication. That's a big part of the battle. And often it is a battle. We're fighting your doctor on that. I talked about that yesterday with the lab tests. But many people find that with hypothyroidism, lab medication is enough. It is important, but not enough. And here, in fact, is a study, 2016, hypothyroidism symptoms linger despite medication use and normal blood tests, actual normal blood tests. So why is that? Why do we still have symptoms? Now our labs really are normal. What the heck is going on? Right? Why is our body not responding to have enough hormone? Let's talk about inflammation. So remember, when I said 95% of our hypothyroidism is going to be caused by autoimmunity, by Hashimoto's or post-Graves, in the sense of you've had surgery or treatment and now you have hypothyroidism. But both of those cases, it is an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases can cause inflammation. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is a good thing. It is your immune system's response to an injury or an insult or a trauma or something, right? It is the immune system doing its job, creating white blood cells, creating T cells and macrophages and B helper cells and all these things that fight bacteria that come into the body. They help our bones repair when we have an injury. It helps if we have a cut, anything like that. That's inflammation. In fact, when you exercise, that like ache you feel, that's inflammation, literally making your muscle stronger. So inflammation itself is not bad, but it's the difference between acute and chronic. Acute is what we're talking about. You have a bit of an allergic reaction, you get a burn, an infection, frostbite, a cut, whatever. It is literally repairing damage. Good thing. However, when that doesn't turn off, it can cause all kinds of problems. So these illnesses, not only do they cause inflammation, but they can be caused by inflammation. So it is this downward spiral. In fact, did you know, my friends, that chronic inflammation is at the root of practically all known chronic health conditions? And I want that to sink in for a moment, because I want you to think about the implication there. Inflammation is your own immune system. That means that practically all known chronic health conditions, from heart disease to Hashimoto's, is caused by your own immune system reacting to the signals it's getting. In the case of autoimmunity, overreacting. all known chronic illnesses, almost all known chronic illnesses, are caused by our own immune system not being able to shut off inflammation. So how does inflammation affect the body? I don't expect you to read all these, but this is just an example of like some of the ways that inflammation causes some of the most common illnesses that we have to wrestle with. And there's the thyroid one, and I just blew this up so you don't have to read the tiny print. Autoimmunity as a result of inflammation can both reduce total thyroid receptor count, so reduce the body's ability to use thyroid hormone, as well as disrupting thyroid hormone production. So that latter part, the body's ability to use hormone, that's why it's not sufficient to have enough medication. We need the medication, but if our body can't use it, right, autoimmune inflammation can cause our body to not be able to use the medication or the hormones that we're producing. It also causes inflammation directly in the thyroid. And in fact, if you've ever had a sonogram, if you have Hashimoto's, it could look like you've been shot by like buckshot because there's lots of tiny little holes, which is in fact what I have. Because the actual inflammatory damage, while your body is attacking those molecules we talked about the other day, the thyroglobulin and or thyroid peroxidase, it is literally causing damage to the thyroid itself. So autoimmune inflammation, both damages the thyroid and damages the body's ability to use thyroid hormone. So autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's and Graves are both caused by and cause chronic inflammation in an ongoing downward spiral, which we need to interrupt in order to heal. Therefore, to eliminate our symptoms, we must stop the autoimmune attack and reduce the resulting inflammation. So this is just an example that comes from showing gut damage, which, by the way, anybody with autoimmune thyroid issues also has autoimmune gastritis, which is damage to the gut. But it's an example of what happens in autoimmune attacks. We have damaged tissues. Here's the immune system, just rallying the troops, both in response to the tissue damage as well as in response to its own confusion, thinking that there's an enemy. Macrophages, neutrophils, all these aspects of the immune system, which are good in other situations. It creates pro-inflammatory cytokines, which are messenger molecules that tell the whole, the alarm. It's like Paul Revere running around, the enemy's coming, gets your whole immune system up ready for an attack. And that creates inflammation, which has increased cell death, tissue injury, barrier function damage, which is both the barrier of your gut, the barrier of your lungs, the blood-brain barrier of the brain, makes you more susceptible to a lot of other injury, and leads to both local and systemic complications. Local, like I said, the damage to the thyroid, or in rheumatoid arthritis, the damage to the joints, etc., as well as systemic problems. So you're probably like, wait a second, you told me the medicine was going to help. It helps, but we also need to take it another step. The only way we can fully heal is to eliminate the autoimmune attack and get rid of the inflammation. That's the only way to fully heal and get rid of all the symptoms and therefore get our lives back. So you're probably like, okay, is it possible? Like first you told me about the symptoms, then you told me about the test, now the medication, and now you tell me the medication is enough. Is it possible to do this? My friends, I am absolutely a poster child for, yes, it is possible. I have had every symptom, from the digestive issues, the weight gain, the infertility, the miscarriages, the brain fog, depression, exhaustion, joint pain, muscle pain, high cholesterol, low body temperature, everything. And I'm healthier now and feel fantastic at 52, better than I felt in my 30s when my hypothyroidism was at its worst. It is possible. But don't just take my word for it, my friends. I just want to share, I have literally dozens and dozens of testimonials. I'm just going to share a couple right now. Here's my friend Helen Washington. She's become my friend through these programs. She has developed non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and stage 3 kidney disease as a result of her hypothyroidism, which is completely possible because remember we saw how in the first video how your thyroid affects all these other symptoms, all these other systems, and when those systems work, you are susceptible to all these other illnesses. And she also had very painful swelling in her stomach. She noticed she detected some allergies, but then on top of that, she followed the recommendations that I talk about, that I teach in my other courses. And she followed the diet and Danielle's health plan for 4 weeks. She lost 15 pounds. On top of that, she also stopped stomach medications because she was able to resolve those problems because they were caused by autoimmune inflammation in your gut. As I said, autoimmune gastritis. So that's Helen. Let's look at here. Now we've got Tina. She said, thyroid disease Hashimoto's for 17 years and the last 5 years have been the worst. And she would go to get labs every 6 months and the doctor would say what we all hear, you're looking fine, just keep doing what you're doing, which is feeling like crap. Great. She then found me on TikTok, like so many of you had. She started with me with the 5-day challenge and then took this workshop that I'm going to talk about tomorrow. And she said she has not looked back as of today. And she did this in June. She had lost 12 pounds just by following this. And then she knows is working for her because she feels great. And she then took another course with me, another workshop, and she's now lost 33 pounds and feels fabulous. So, and I've had so many results, 50 pounds, 55 pounds. Another client, Virginia, who I talk about elsewhere, in the first week of doing this, she lost 6 pounds. It's not that she got rid of the inflammation. Then after 6 weeks, she lost 25 pounds. But in the first 2 weeks, actually in the first week, she went from barely being able to get out of bed to going to the playground with her children her 3 children every day during the week. And that was one of the biggest things. She had a 9-month-old. She could barely take care of them. Then she was able to have the energy to be, with her kids and with her family again after just the first week. And now she's lost 25 pounds. So my friends, this does work. It really does work. And it's not magic. None of this is meant to be snake oil. None of this is meant to be, buy my latest, magic pill or whatever. It's science. It's science. And that's what I do. I walk people through the science and I help them. I hold their hand and teach them what they need to do to get their lives back. And so that's why I put together this workshop, because I want to present you with information to help you heal. The workshop has been incredibly rewarding for me. So many people have downloaded, commented, shared it. Again, it makes me feel so good to know that this is helping people. I love these interactions. I love, geeking out and pulling all the information to make it relevant and interesting to you. Now, you may be wondering, okay, how do I get Helen's results or Tina's results or Virginia's results or Kelly's results or, all the other people I'll introduce you to? How do I actually build this diet and lifestyle? Well, if you're interested in taking this further, friends, I put together a workshop. It's a self-paced, do-it-yourself workshop that really does walk you through how to, as you can see from this, how to eat to heal your thyroid, how to change your life and your diet so that you can have the amazing results that you've heard about here. The results I've had and the results literally dozens and dozens of people have had working with me and working through these programs. I'm opening the course soon, and enrollment is only going to be open for a few days because with my own fabulous healing, I'm taking a vacation. We're going to Peru for a month. So I am only going to keep this course open from tomorrow, Friday, through next Monday. And then I get on a plane on Tuesday morning. Stay tuned. You'll see some videos when I get to on TikTok. I'm only opening it briefly. You will get lots of details about the upcoming workshop. There'll be in a future video on how you get started. So look through that. That'll be in your inbox tomorrow. In the meantime, friends, I want to hear what you've gotten out of this. I want to know about this masterclass and what you're going to do with the information you've had so far, because this is meant to empower you to change your life. So scroll down, leave me comments. I love hearing from you, and I hope you've gotten something out of this. Share it with other people if you had, and I hope to see you again in the next video very, very soon. Take care all.